Lil Ugly Mane. This guy is quite an interesting figure really. I mean, it's not as if he keeps much hidden. He's not mysterious or anything, and it's pretty easy to work out. The way he's interesting is in his integrity really. I get the impression Lil Ugly Mane must find distaste in most music. I'll also just be calling him Travis throughout the video, by the way. But yeah, he makes some pretty unique music. Has always been in his own lane no matter what he was doing. And as he's gained a lot of notoriety and praise, he still lurks in the shadows. He could be way bigger than he is if he wanted to really, but that's not what he's about. And he's declared this a few times across his career, whether it be outright the point of some songs, or just in how far his music travels away from conventionality. One could see it almost as self-sabotaging. There's a path out in front of him where everything would be much easier if he were to just walk down it, but that path disgusts him, and he'd rather isolate and lash out at the world through his music. Travis is also one of those guys who's never doing good in life, if you get me. His art is massively negative. In fact, it is hard to think of any Lil Ugly Mane song that I would call positive. Undoing the Evil Deed Blues has well-defined themes of integrity and authenticity and appreciation, but at the same time it exhibits a disappointment in the music that he loved and a general fed-upness. It is, however, a positive song compared to a song like Hideous Disfigurements. That's for certain. Travis has had a long history of wanting to and also attempting to top himself. It's perhaps too visceral for me to want to get into in a video which isn't about Hideous Disfigurements, but let's just say the authenticity of that song really makes it all the more fucked up. All this isolation and negativity, it really gives you the vision of Travis alone in his room, on his computer, just making fucked up beats, just sitting there brooding, feeling really fucked up. And I think that's really the kind of process and mentality that births songs like Uneven Compromise. When you hear the first part of this song, you hear that hellish mental landscape, that almost siren-like sense of danger and urgency. Really, it all feels like spinning out of control. On this first part of the song, the lyrics all portray a loss of humanity. He's more like a demon here than a man. All of the lyrics on some mad horrorcore shit. There is this repeated phrase which really sounds like it's trying to hypnotize you into believing some next satanic shit. Corrupted by the darkness, now you fall into an endless sleep. And really that's what this song is about. Becoming corrupted by the darkness and being locked into slavery and ignorance. Only that endless part is merely an illusion, as we will come to learn later. The lyrics in these first couple verses, not only are they incredibly antisocial, to put it lightly, they're totally psychotic and satanic. But what's more is that Ugly Mane makes a clear point that he has come to enjoy the suffering and pain and torment that comes with this. He is enslaved, and yet he has come to love his slavery as some sort of perverse cope. But the cope isn't recognizable to him, and so he is under some perverse illusion. He leaves the blood on his hands because he likes the smell. He's deep in his coffin, he calls it his home. And the last lines of the second verse are very relevant to this too, and hit very hard if you ask me. Cowering and broken, I'm a victim of my evil deeds, but I don't need your sympathy, I'm comfortable in misery. The first verse ends with the acknowledgement that Travis has created this hell that he lives in. He imposes suffering upon himself, and so all that has to happen for any of this to stop is just for him to choose to free himself. But then the ending of this second verse tells us that Travis finds it more comfortable to be in this state. Change is hard and difficult and stressful, and it's easier to just give in. It really ties into what I was saying about Travis earlier, where he will kind of isolate and self-sabotage. There's this part where he says, "Motherfuckers can't win because I'm trying to fail." It's this kind of mentality where he puts no stock at all into building himself up that causes him to end up this way. He's comfortable in misery. He's kind of accepted that he is this way and it cannot change, which is in fact an illusion, but his belief makes this fact for him. As long as that belief remains, then he really is in an endless sleep. This song has a few different parts, and it's purposefully ordered in a way that throws you off. You go from the first part, which sounds utterly hellish and demented, then you move into this part that feels very liberating and enlightening, and then after that you go into the deceivingly hard third part, where Ugly Mane raps with a lot of swagger and shit, and you get that vibe like he's feeling himself. In this part, he's talking to his friend, who in comparison to him is basically at rock bottom. And as it goes on, Travis comes to learn that his friend has killed his own children. Things are told in a kind of backwards way here, because the way I see it, that mentality that's being shown to us in the first 2 verses during part 1, that's the mentality that his friend has in the 3rd verse. So the first part, it could be from his friend's perspective, or it could still be Travis's perspective, because he says in the 3rd verse that he's been down the same road before. But either way, his friend here shares that same mentality. And I think really what this song is about is a guy who wishes to transcend all boundaries and limitations imposed upon him. And ultimately, he succeeds in this. He sheds off everything and attains total freedom. And now that he tastes total freedom, the lack of any boundaries to hold him firm at all means that there is absolutely nothing to stop him from doing anything at all. There are no moral concerns, and the world is his oyster. Being comfortable to be in a sea of chaos, he doesn't have any sort of reflection or apprehension in participating in activities like taking drugs. I'm not saying he just sees no harm in it, but rather he has no thoughts about it at all. He just does shit at this point. After freeing himself from all boundaries of morality or meaning, he ironically falls into the clutches of drugs and becomes a slave to them. And then his mind grows disturbed and tormented as they eat away at him. Really, this song preaches the message that you shouldn't follow that particular path of nihilism where you cast away the meaning of everything without then introducing your own set of principles and living by what things personally mean to you. If you are to attain complete freedom in those regards, really you attain complete thoughtlessness, and then you are like a doormat the world walks over, and a sponge that will soak in every negative thing coming your way without any mental wall of defense to stop it. Really, this kind of freedom is just ignorance in its own way, and now he's really doomed to suffer. After being consumed by drugs, he starts to gain this resentful attitude, and with no moral framework with which to deal with these feelings, they fester and thrive and change him drastically, and that's why the guy ends up killing his kids in the 3rd part. What am I actually talking about though? What am I basing any of that on? Well, you see this transition part where everything starts sounding enlightening and shit. This is that freedom from boundaries really. But notice how when he says liberating, it becomes all distorted and ruined. Kinda like just as freedom was grasped, that blissful moment is cut short and you spin out of control because all foundations have been eliminated. There is definitely a desire for liberation in this song, but the only places it shows us are like scorched mental plains. These are the only destinations of both Travis and his friend on this song. You can see this line in the 1st verse that's pretty important if you ask me. Open my mind and then hammer it closed. Into the darkness, I'm strangled and choked. Pretty much describes what I'm saying perfectly. The shit that's being said during this like enlightening, liberating part, it is good wisdom, that's the thing. It does genuinely bring a feeling of elation and it's good advice to take in. But if you don't have the things in life to hold you firm, liberation can be a very dangerous thing. That's kind of the point. Let me start delving into the lyrics of the verse during part 3. And like I said earlier, this part all rests on this deceivingly hard beat, where it almost feels like an absurdly swaggerous boom bap track. The beats thump like maybe even satirically loud. It goes really hard, but it also has samples that make it have a bit of an ominous, foreboding undertone. I think this beat is really here to represent Travis's high self-esteem here, which really doesn't clash well with his friend's mood at all. It kind of feels like he's shrugging off his friend a little bit at times, and kind of in his own head, he begins to realize what's going on and empathize with him. I always imagine before the verse begins, Travis walking down the street with his huge strides in time with the beat, like he's just feeling himself massively, until he runs into his friend and the verse starts. His friend is a drug dealer, and it turns out that his supply has been totally cut off, and he's stressed out because no other avenues are working for him. They end up chilling out with each other, sitting on some steps, and casually, Travis asks his friend how his kids are. And his friend says that they ain't seen them since their mother tried to kill him, which causes Travis to laugh and kind of obnoxiously detail the story of when his friend's girl tried to kill him. Obnoxiously, only because Travis doesn't yet really realize his friend's mood. He's feeling himself too much. He details the story of how his friend got caught cheating on his girl, and his girl got so mad she pulled a gun on him, and he jumped out the window butt naked to get away. He then pauses though because he realizes that his friend is just totally stone-faced and not finding it funny at all. He tries to change the subject, but his friend throws his hat in the street in frustration as he lays out his feelings. He used to be a baller, and now he doesn't understand what happened to him, as now he's raggedy. The high life is over, his access to easy pay has been cut off, and he's just stressed, not finding any solutions. Travis is puzzled by his feelings of inadequacy and then notices the track marks in his friend's arm. He comes to understand that his friend is a heroin addict. Travis's reaction to this right away is that he wants to dap him and leave, but then he decides against it because he's been down the same road before and doesn't want to see his friend sink too far into that. He knows what it's like. It's interesting that multiple times in this verse, Travis points out his inner thoughts that make him sound like a dickhead. He sees his friend has a serious problem, and the first thing he wants to do is get away and not have to deal with it. It's like he's trying to point out how shit of a person he is with these lines. And generally, again, I think the comical hardness of this whole section ties into that too. He's pointing out how egotistical he is and how kind of naive that ego is because of the obliviousness that he's currently exhibiting, in the fact it's took him so long to understand his friend's mood, and also in the fact of what we already know his friend has done, that Travis comes to learn of later. It's sort of like Travis is mocking himself in retrospect. Travis confronts his friend about his habit, and his friend gets violent, and Travis feels like they could get in a fight, so he diffuses the situation and apologizes for bringing it up. He then describes his inner thoughts at the time, saying that he would really hate to see his friend die, and that he wants to see his people doing well, and that he likes to view his people as more than their lowest moments. Really quite a respectable mentality, which contrasts a lot with how shitty Travis has depicted himself as. I think really with those moments where he paints himself out to be a shitty person, it's kind of like he's just punishing himself for intrusive thoughts that he didn't act on, saying, "Aren't I such a terrible person for thinking this?" When really his actions show that he isn't. His friend tells him that he will clean up and that it's a promise, even looking him in the eyes when he said it. But Travis knows it all too well from his own experiences and knows that it isn't as simple as that, and that his friend will most likely continue using. But regardless, he places trust in his friend because he considers it to be what friends do, and he promises not to bring it up anymore. He gives him some money and says goodbye. His friend lets him know that he's staying with his auntie and his cousin, but Travis later happens to run into his auntie and she tells him that he wasn't staying with her. And even more than that, if she did see him, she would snitch him to the government, and that his addiction has warped him so much that she didn't even love him anymore. Travis is taken back by this and challenges her, because as we know, Travis has faith in his friends. He can't understand how his friend's own family member is talking so hopelessly about him. And she then tells him that he's evil and doesn't have emotions, and that they found his babies with their throats slit, and he's the culprit. I reckon I'll just read out the rest of the verse as it's written, because it speaks for itself really. I'm like, oh shit, step back. How'd she go against blood like that? That's the homie from the way back. Looking at the stars, what the fuck could make you say that? No, love, I can't even play that. It's hard to light a smoke when you're trying to breathe, cause deep down I know she ain't lying to me. Cause deep down I know she ain't lying to me. Cause deep down I know she ain't lying to me. This last part is so evocative in the sense you can imagine the panic of both denial and anger and sadness and many conflicting emotions as he struggles to breathe, shaking, trying to light a cigarette to calm himself down. Like I can just picture it so clearly. To be honest, I take deep down I know she ain't lying to me to be even deeper than people really realize. Because the reason Travis knows she isn't lying to him is because he knows that he was capable of doing something like that before when he was in the same situation. It's very subtle, but I think that's what the deal is. I don't know if this scenario where he's talking to his friend is something that actually happened or not, but either way, this song is real as hell because Travis is admitting something here that most people wouldn't ever admit. He's acknowledging that he has it in him to commit the worst acts possible, or at least was capable of it at his most jaded and bitter. Again, it could be another thought that he's punishing himself for. Literally just thinking the same thing once that his friend actually acted out in real life makes him a horrible person in his mind, and he hates himself for it. Really, I think a huge element of this song is Travis hating himself for how fucked up he used to be. The thoughts he used to have still haunt him, and seeing it all play out in front of him really fucks with him. Like, this is exactly what could have happened to him. He allowed himself to get that close to the verge of evil and the verge of disaster. I do find this song immensely interesting for this reason. I think it lays it all out in a very good way. The part that follows this up is quite haunting. Ugly Mane basically says sometimes you just gotta give up on people. They go too far past the point of saving and do heinous things, and they're no longer the people they were before. It's very stark and fucked up to me. I do feel like the fourth part ties into the whole admission that I've talked about here. The instrumental sounds very troubled, and then there's that vocal sample like, "What are you doing? I don't know." Like, there's a defensive part of him telling him that it would be really bad for him to even finish this track really. That what he has admitted to here is something that should never really see the light of day. That is practically suicide to reveal these most secret parts of yourself. As the instrumental goes on, it kind of feels more and more like peak in dread as the track nears closer to completion, until finally the harsh noise comes in, and it's like with the track's completion, Travis has resigned himself to a fate where this admission is out there forever, and the part of him that wishes to defend himself goes haywire. Of course, this whole harsh noise part is also fitting in the sense that Travis is declaring that this song shall only be listened to by those who are willing to get uncomfortable. You can't playlist this shit because you find it vibey or something, because it's gonna ear rape you at the end. I'm not crazy about harsh noise really, but I think the context of it here makes it work, and actually just judging the harsh noise and how it sounds, I think it's actually pretty good. Like, it's pretty evocative to me, and like I said already, it really feels like everything is going off the rails. In the middle of this song, a bunch of samples play, which is basically Ugly Mane throwing shade on record labels and just standing firm against how fucked up the industry is. Travis, he's always kept it real. He has the talent to make shitty corpo music if he wanted, but he decides to make mad creative outside the box shit instead. Feels very fitting to make this sort of declaration in the middle of a song like this to me. Like, it has nothing to do with the narrative at all, but it fits because of how original this shit is, how masterful this shit is, how true it is to the soul of hip hop, while also being infused with such inspired ideas and concepts that you never really see in rap. At least not like this anyway. There aren't many rappers who could pump out something like this song really. Amazing storytelling, emotionally, it just like holds you hostage really and tosses you around in many different ways. And Travis, he's no weak rapper. His skills are very respectable. I do think this is a masterpiece for the reasons I've laid out across this video. I will be giving it 10 cats out of a possible 10 cats. I hope you enjoyed this review. I've been meaning to wrap up all my thoughts about this song in a fluent way for quite a while now, and I had fun making this. I guess the positive message to take away from this is that you can pull yourself out of rock bottom. I mean, the sheer horror of what we see of Travis's friend on this song. That's exactly what Travis pulled himself out of. Those first two verses is exactly what Travis pulled himself out of. So while the song is mostly negative and speaks on lasting scars that one carries with them from their worst moments, there is at least one powerful positive sentiment we can extract from this experience. But yeah, that's about it for this review. Subscribe to the Catman Show, leave a like, leave a comment. Goodbye.